Hey everybody, welcome to CAF's Heroes of Sport. My name is Bob Babbitt, co-founder of Challenged Athletes Foundation. And each week you'll meet some of the world's most amazing challenged athletes. This week, wheelchair basketball star Mack Johnson and his amazing mom, Jean. How you both doing?
Hi, how are you?
I'm
Doing
wonderful.
well, Bob.
Very cool, Mack. Hey, so Mack, growing up, what were your sports?
Growing up, my big sport was football, but I've dabbled in a lot of. I kind of went around before I found football.
And
All
Jean, was
sorts
he
of
one of those
sports.
just really active kids, sort of doing everything?
He stayed pretty active, busy with school activities and student government as well as sports. So he was a busy fella.
So November 5th, 2016, pretty much changed everything. Mac falls off a deck at a party, paralyzed from the waist down. It's probably the worst phone call that a mom can get. Talk a little bit about that, Gene, just that day and how that changed you guys.
You wake up the middle of the night, phone call that there's been an accident, and we hopped up and went to Tennessee, not knowing, what was going on because we hadn't been given much information other than that there was an accident. And it was a quiet 3-hour ride, just trying to, prepare for it. And we got there, and when we got out of the car, I got out on the passenger side and made it to the trunk, and the doctor called and said, we're headed into surgery. And I said, can you answer any questions for his dad? And he said, it's straightforward, we're going in, and hung up. And we just sat. And
Wow.
there was no one in the waiting room. It's the middle of the night. It was a long night, with no answers. We didn't know anything.
And when did they tell you what the prognosis was?
In the morning, probably about 7:30, they came in and said that they had done all that they could, and that it would be a waiting game from here, but that at this point right now, he had no use of his legs. And
No. And for you, Mac, obviously, I remember reading something where you were like, when people ask you what your goals are for 5 years from now, nobody says, well, my goal is I'll be in a wheelchair. And so when did the doctor break it to you that you were paralyzed, or did you know?
I always say I was the last to find out. So a lot of my family had known, and kind of my friends were aware of what happened. I found out, I guess, that morning or shortly after, when they told me, and it never really processed what that actually meant.
Had you been exposed at all to people in wheelchairs or wheelchair sports, anything like that before that, your accident?
None. No. The only thing I had seen of being in a wheelchair usually was just in hospitals, elderly people, nothing of activity or anything.
When did you learn of wheelchair basketball and think, that might be interesting?
So wheelchair basketball was introduced to me while I was at the Shepherd Center in Atlanta. They went out and tried to introduce me to different activities, and we went down to the gym where people usually work out and do rehab sometimes, and they had a game going. And so that's when I was able to see the sport and see what it had to offer.
So you go to, and I wasn't sure if this was with the whole family when you went to the NCAA championships that in 2017. Was that the whole family, or was that you on your own?
27 in 2016, or was it 20? Yeah, no, that was with the family. Yeah.
Yeah, his uncle and I were with him.
And so you guys ran into, what are the odds on that? You're in the middle of nowhere at Dateland, and you run into NBA Hall of Famer and huge CAF supporter Bill Walton. And Mac, was it you who said, hey, I want to get a photo with Bill?
Yeah, no, I thought that was going to be the highlight of my trip. I got to go to the Final Four, and then in a random gas station, I got a picture with Bill Walton. But it turned out that it would bloom into way more than that.
So what happened? I'm just knowing Bill and doing my best Bill Walton imitation. Like, Mac, what's your sport? What do you do? I'm just imagining the grilling that came out from Bill.
And so the first thing he told us was, you have to go to San Diego. It's God's promised land, which is actually where we were headed. So once he made that connection, he said, you know what? He said, I'm going to help you out. He's like, you should go to the zoo. It's a great place. You guys need to check it out. And we also need to go to CAF and meet some friends. You'll love them. They're great people. And so that's when I got introduced to CAF in San Diego.
And Bill's the type of guy who says, hey, when you come to San Diego, just come live at my house.
He did. Pretty soon after, he said, just come live with me. I was like, I don't know. I think I'd have to figure out the papers with my parents, but we'll see.
But did you end up living with him?
For a brief period, I did. I went out there and visited for about a month and hung out and went to all the places that Bill recommended.
So, Gene, when something like this happens to your son, there's a point where you wonder, will he ever be Mack again? When did you feel that your son was back? That, okay, this is a different path that he wanted to take, or we wanted him to take, but it's going to be okay.
He spoke to us in the spring, and he said, Mom, there's a basketball camp at Auburn that I want to check out. He was going back to Wofford, and he said, I'm going to try to do a little basketball, so maybe I should know a little bit more about the sport. So we went, and after we returned, we're riding, and he said, I think I'm going to transfer to Auburn. And I said, okay. He said, I'm not sure when, but I think I am. And I said, okay. And kind of just sat back a little bit and watched him take the reins and talk with the coach. And the next thing I know, he said, well, they said I can come. I've got to get an apartment. And I mean, within less than a month, we were leaving Wofford, transferring to Auburn, getting an apartment. And I knew that he had found a new passion and a new purpose, and was setting goals and things that he wanted to accomplish.
Mack, how has this changed you? This just everything you've gone through.
I think the key thing that this whole experience has provided me is perspective. I've gotten to see so many. I think the blessing of my injury and everything is that I've gotten to experience life, and at a certain point think that I had it all figured out, and then now I can see the world from a chair, and I'm grateful for that.
I've had guys tell me in the past that the worst part about being in a chair is before I was 6'2" and now I'm 3'6", and my whole life is belt buckles.
Yeah.
Butts. What has been the toughest part for you?
The toughest part for me has just been, being confident in myself. I think that everybody deals with that in some form or another. But like I said, I was 18, thought I had my identity, I had the world figured out. And then in the split second, life changes, and you begin to question who you are and, what are your core values and foundations. And I think I really found out a lot about myself throughout the process.
And when you're playing wheelchair basketball, and talk a little bit about just how tough that sport is. I mean, you were a football player before, so tough. And I think sometimes people think, oh, adapted sports, it's pretty easy. I mean, I think you were guarding some guy who was 6'9", right?
Yeah, there's some monsters on the court. That was before seeing wheelchair basketball, I thought the same thing. I thought, oh man, we're just going to go out there, roll out in these chairs, and it's going to be a light game. But I quickly found out after my hands were just torn with calluses that I was like, oh wow, these guys they're athletes.
Yes, they are athletes. And I think Bill Walton was doing commentating at a game, and he was saying the best athlete at Auburn is Mack Johnson. How cool is that?
That's really cool. It's an ongoing investigation between me and Chuck, Charles Barkley, but soon to be determined.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you talked to Chuck about that?
I have not.
One day, Bill's got to get you into see Chuck. So, in terms of basketball, you came from a different school. You weren't indoctrinated with Auburn, Alabama, the hate that comes. How long did it take you to realize that this is a real thing, that this isn't just something people talk about?
Oh, it was right away that, everywhere you go, you hear War Eagle. It's yes, no, thank you. It means everything. And Roll Tide it's a tough word to hear around here. You may have some issues.
So when did you get, and it's funny because you start playing wheelchair basketball, you don't really realize the difference between a borrowed chair and a chair that actually is made for you. When you got your chair from CAF, how big a difference did that make?
It made all the difference. It's fit for you. It's just like I compare it to, I'm sure that LeBron James could go out and wear a size bigger shoe, but the dunks just wouldn't be as great. It's a huge fit. It's a huge change.
So Mom, I'm sure you knew nothing about wheelchair basketball when all this started. How big a fan have you become?
Well, let me say I have about 30 years in education, and I'd never worked with anybody with a spinal cord injury.
Really?
And I always share with people, I call them my new eyes and my new perspective on things that I never knew about a spinal cord injury. As far as being a fan, I have a shirt that said, I'll always be his biggest fan. I'm Auburn from head to toe. And I proudly say War Eagle wherever I go.
Have you been to a lot of the games?
I go to every one that I can get to.
So Mack, do you see yourself? Is this something Paralympics down the line? What do you see with wheelchair basketball?
So I don't see myself in the Paralympics. But I do see myself being involved in a community and bringing other folks into the game, allowing people to learn about it, to view it, disabled or not. I think that the message needs to be spread that it's a sport and we're around and we're here to stay.
So you're a team sport guy. When
Yes,
you were asked to come be part of the $1 Million Challenge bike ride, 600 and some miles down the coast of California in a hand cycle, what was that experience like for you?
That was mind blowing. It was just another introduction into seeing, wow, that these guys are athletes. I think the most impressive thing was watching Andre out there.
Andre Kylick, yeah.
Yeah, he's a monster.
Yeah, he really is. So, Mom, how important do you think CAF has been in the recovery, Mack's recovery?
CAF was a game changer. I think it took him from just sitting and wondering what his next move would be to making a plan and executing. I think he would have become himself at some point, but I think that basketball wheelchair, CAF, and the opportunities provided by them fast-tracked it, and just I can't say enough about it. I wear my CAF. They talk about me on the weekend. If I'm in the store, it's either Auburn or CAF, and I tell anybody anywhere I go the story and just what is offered, because until you experience such a life-changing event, you don't know you don't know what's out there. You don't know the opportunities that are there. And I am eternally grateful to CAF and all the angels that we've met along the way that have impacted my son's life.
So as an educator, as you mentioned, what have you taken away from this experience that you use now as an educator?
I think that there needs to be more voices explaining what's out there, and that you always say that anybody can do anything they want to do, but until you are faced with that adversity, you don't understand what's required and all that's involved. I often say that, I used to say, if you went in the restroom and it had bars, well, it's handicap accessible. Now when I go in somewhere, I'm looking, can he transfer? There's not room for his chair in here. Or why is the cutout 3 blocks from the parking space? What kind of handicap parking space is this? So I think that there just needs to be more. I would like to see people experience what they do firsthand more, and I think it would be more impactful for individuals. I think that you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. It's funny. When I went to the Paralympics in Rio, and these are the Olympics for people who are in chairs and hand cycles, and the cutouts were different in every single curb, right? And some of them look like you were coming down a mountainside, and you're sitting at the top of the curb, and you're going, okay, you're going to have to go down, take a left, figure out how to get across the brick street and go up. It was like a Paralympic event on its own. So the other countries it's harder in the other countries than anywhere else. Mack, what are your goals for the future? What do you want to be doing? Like, we're talking about our 5-year plan 5 years ago. What would be your 5-year plan now?
Another 5-year plan.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully I don't see any more accidents in my future.
Yeah.
But right now I'm working on finishing up at Auburn, and I'm working on getting my CPA, so Certified Public Accountant. So that's the goal.
I love it. How has this changed the relationship with your folks, or has it?
It has. I think after my accident, I was in a really vulnerable position. I went from being 18 to, out driving and be out with my friends. And, I was fairly independent to where I needed my parents for a lot of activities first coming out of rehab. And that, it really brought me closer to them. I was able to see how much, they were willing to do for me. It just, all parts of the rehab grew us closer. Those are dark times, and there's, everybody needs a shoulder to cry on at times. And, that really brought us together.
What's interesting, I remember interviewing a wheelchair athlete named Glenn Hartrick, and he told me that what was important when he was in the hospital, he realized he was the barometer for his family and friends, that if he was in a bad mood, they were as paralyzed as he was. They couldn't move forward with their lives because of the place he was at that point. He had to figure out who he could confide in and who he couldn't, so that he could look at life differently. And did you find that there were certain people you sort of needed to put on the brave front, but at the same time, you needed people to have a shoulder to cry on?
I did. That was one of the big concerns when I was coming, through the rehab process. I felt like I was a burden to a lot of my friends and didn't really know my role in place. But there were people who were consistent in my life, who checked in and, didn't necessarily make that face of, something's different. The people who stuck around and said, how can I help? How can we go do the same things that we did before? Those are the people that I stick around with, who I really appreciate, and will be forever indebted to.
What's your favorite CAF moment?
My favorite CAF moment.
Yep.
I think it would it have to be when we all were able to come, our team, we were all able to come out to San Diego and be a part of the triathlon. I think that was big for a lot of other people on the team to see how CAF is and, you know, visit San Diego. So I think that's one of my highlights.
And for you, Jean, favorite CAF moment?
I have, well, two, but one that I hold really dear is when he went on the first $1 Million Challenge ride, and one of your angels, Alan Shankin, came to me and gave me a coin and talked to me about being a parent and what he saw in me, and it made me just know that I was with the right people and that my son would be okay. I knew that without a shadow of a doubt, you know, we were behind him and it would happen. But had it not been for CAF and the gift of the wheelchair and the support and the, you know, the people that came to his side and helped him find his way, it would have just been a longer journey. And I will, you know, again, be always grateful for all that has happened. And I'm CAF for life.
So Mac, if you had one thing to say to Bill Walton, what would it be?
Bill, I love my bike. I love basketball, but the bike's calling me. My body's getting old.
Hey, thank you both for taking time to chat. I really, really enjoyed talking to both you guys and appreciate you being part of our CAF family. You guys are awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Jean and Mack
Thank
Johnson.
you, Bob.
Mac, you are the best. Thank you so much. And keep shooting, buddy. Again, this is our Heroes of Sport show, Challenge Athletes Foundation. My name is Bob Abbott. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.